Desks are too damn boring, but this desk is gonna change that. It has a magnetic dock for your tablet, an accessory rail for cords and tools, a recessed tray for your mechanical keyboard and its tall ass cherry switches, and of course, a dual function cup holder. But at the end of this, I'm gonna tell you why it still yet fails me, why desk innovation still has a long way to go. Nah, I'm not gonna do that to you. I won't tease you like that. It's cords. It's always cords. I hate cords. Anyway, let's go buy some lumber. My local lumber yard always has some nice wide walnut planks, and I think this build came in at around 20 board feet and maybe $10 a board foot. But there was some discounting on the fact that several of the boards came in just under that 4/4 thickness. One design idea I had was to create a kind of live edge effect by putting some sapwood towards the front of the desk. I'm not great with the hand plane, but it does help reveal the grain and figure so I can match that with other planks before chopping over at the miter saw. I got this jointer off Craigslist recently. I think it was from 2006 or 7, and I always like pointing out to my kids which tools are older than they are, as a way of, kind of putting them in their place. Especially with the jointer. That thing can chew your hand off, and it'll probably outlive you too. In my view, it is the apex predator of the workshop. You'll see me using a domino here in a few seconds, and I want you to know it's not because I think it's a good practical tool in the workshop. It is an investment vehicle. The domino debuted in 2007 at $660, and it's currently retailing for $1,355 over at Beaver Industrial Supply, which means it has outperformed inflation over the past, 18 years? Whatever, it is basically sitting just under gold as a hedge against US equities. So when your wife asks you, why did you buy a domino? It is for your children's future. That is why you buy a domino. All right, enough financial advice. For the rear desk portion, I opted for a lamination of thinner strips to achieve a Gothic arch detail on the accessory rail. I cut a severe angle over at the chop saw, and then I used the spindle sander to give it a subtle arch before gluing them all up into one piece. This idea created a lot more handwork than I expected, especially for a single detail on the back side of the table. Last of all, I had to insert a shim just to get those thin pieces of that arch detail to actually compress and glue up against the wider boards. These were not wise decisions. I'm filling some knot holes here, which is a very common cross to bear on my projects. I'm typically selecting the most highly figured, distressed, and weird-looking pieces of wood that I can find, just to avoid the finished piece looking like it came straight from Wayfair.com. It puts you into a kind of a bizarre upside-down situation where you're choosing the lower-grade wood in order to make sure people realize that it's actually real wood. I don't like this trend. I'm putting in this curved detail with a plywood jig using a printed template. Super 77 spray adhesive always helps out for jigs like this, especially if you're forced to use printer paper to create the shape. With the ellipse jig cleaned up, it was a simple matter of jig sawing out the shape and then cleaning that up with the flush trim bit. Here you can see the glue line of the laminated boards, which would be a very ugly detail to leave like that, but the cove profile that you'll see me cut next actually buries that detail on the underside of the table, rendering it practically invisible. It's not a detail I would permit for any kind of a production piece, but for a prototype, I think it's fine, right? Yeah, it's fine. For sharp-eyed viewers, please pay no mind to that domino showing through on the underside. Remember, the domino's an investment. This is the first time I'm using a hard wax oil. I'm usually a lacquer kind of guy, but I did enjoy this Natura one coat. I haven't done any diligence on other hard wax oils, so I don't recommend it, only because I really haven't compared it to anything else yet. The final product you'll see at the end is actually a lacquer finish because I messed up this finish with some carbon method that I didn't know how to really apply, so I had to sand back and just get the project done. And here she is, in all her naked glory. I like the sapwood edge in theory more than I do in reality, but it was worth a shot. Obviously, the amount of gaps and slots and cavities would disturb anybody, but let's take a few moments now and see if we can put them to good use. As I'm going to use a laptop as the primary device on this desk, I need a hub to bring all those monitor and keyboard connections together in one place. A good trick here is to use hot glue for a nice sturdy bond that you can easily reverse later on with some isopropyl alcohol. Next up is a monitor arm that can now simply mount directly through the rear accessory rail. I use these monitor arms a lot, probably too much, and have completely switched over to these vertical post style arms. The others that have springs to cantilever the weight of the monitor simply can't keep up with today's heavier ultra-wide monitors. This magnetic tablet dock uses a threaded rod and some 3D printed parts to clamp through the forward accessory rail. Then you slide a sheath over the threads to clean up the look and screw on the adjustable ball and socket mount. On that front face is a MagSafe ring for phones or a thin and light laptop like this Surface Pro. The cup holder here works exactly as you would think. It's large and deep for cups that you don't want to spill over, but also accepts a standard 4-inch coaster found on Amazon. I've been calling these accessory rails because they're just linear gaps in your desktop through which accessories or cords or other tools can attach to or pass through. There are many options here, but it started with just a simple cord manager. This one here keeps 4 cords at the ready, recessed but accessible just when you need them. But there are many ways to play with this idea. Another idea was this little ball stop. Same outcome, but I think it's a little bit more fun. It's more cute. I don't know. What do you think? Now my favorite feature. I'm recessing a mechanical keyboard into the desktop as a way of fixing the ergonomics of these very tall mechanical switches. This will certainly be a controversial feature, but whether you like it or hate it, that's what a prototype ought to do. It gives you conviction on whether you like it or hate it. The upside is a more comfortable wrist. The downside is a fixed keyboard position that you can't move around. Now you could always pop in a flat insert and return it to being a quote-unquote normal desk, but it'll really never be truly normal, so we'll see. I rounded the edges and softened the corners over at the router table, but now I need something that interfaces between the wood desk and the keyboard. I landed on this keyboard tray insert, which is just mild steel from Send Cut Send. Before putting some paint on it, I deburred the edges with the file and spray painted everything a nice satin black. Because of the risk of wood movement relative to a metal insert, I used a CNC to cut the keyboard recess and cup holder. I wanted to remove myself as a point of error in achieving a very specific fit that permits a single millimeter of wood expansion. I'm attaching it with some screws here because I will definitely be fiddling and reworking this part in the future. No matter how accurate you think your CNC process is, or the steel fabrication process, it's never going to match up perfectly without some layer of adjustment. So these holes in the recessed portion allow for grub screws that act as a leveling feature between the wood and the steel. I was lucky that the materials were already very close, but the grub screws were still a big help. After 1 or 2 adjustments, I was able to get things dead flat. And now I have the comfort that if the wood moves in the future, I can still get things dead flat again. The magic of Send Cut Send is that you can always buy another insert to fit perfectly with a new keyboard, as long as it's not bigger than the recess. So you're not really committing to a keyboard as you are committing to a maximum keyboard size. And my hypothesis is that most people tend to prefer a single keyboard size. And here she is. Again. I've put this on top of a very standard sit-stand leg base. And by standard, I mean all of these leg bases are almost identical. So my idea is to make these desk slabs as a modular upgrade for whatever desk base you have or want to buy. I gotta say, for a prototype, I'm pretty happy with this one. Usually the design process makes you iterate endlessly with new versions over and over again. But I might have just nailed it in one. This has gotta be the perfect desk that anyone has ever. Okay, so I still have some pretty glaring issues to address if I'm going to be revolutionizing desk organization. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and cord management is a pretty thorny issue. I do have some specific ideas about how I want to address cords, but I'm not going to try to shove that all into a single project here and now. You'll just have to wait for the next version or versions to look at that.
If there's any feedback I would love right now, it's basically what problems you have and you hate about working at a desk now. Maybe that's organization or ergonomics, how technology comes into it, modes of use. Basically, whatever problems you can provide makes the development process a lot more effective in terms of creating a product that's worth having and owning. Please do go sign up at finegrainwork.co if you want to get email updates. You know what? I'm not going to do email updates. Go sign up if you basically want to get one of these prototype samples shipped for the cost of freight, because I just need feedback from users. Feedback from users is the most precious resource in terms of making your product great. And if I can get a few of these out there in the wild, it's going to make this whole process a lot faster. But until then, I'll see you next time.